Where does your attitude to life come from? Let's say you're however old you are, you're 20 to 60, whatever, however old you are. You have a certain attitude to life. And it does change sometimes, by the way. People get hangry. I didn't have enough to eat today, so I have a bad attitude. But in general, you've got a basic, baseline happiness, your level of happiness. In general, I'm a kind of happy person unless something goes wrong, or in general, I'm a very stressed, anxious person, and unless something goes right, I feel happy. So you have a certain attitude to life. Where did that attitude to life come from? Life. So really it's three things. And people speak about this a lot. There are three things that have created who you are and your attitude to life. Number one is your nature. Some people are born just more chilled out and they're okay. Some people are born more prone to anger. So you're born with a nature, a makeup. Then there's your nurture. Your nurture, your childhood. How were you brought up? Did you have abusive parents? Did you have parents that spoiled you? Did you have great parents, supportive parents? You have a nurture. And then there's a third thing, people don't speak about it so much, it's significant events in your life. Because you could be born with a good nature and good parents but get bullied at school, and then so that affects your attitude. The voices in your head which are creating your attitude are basically implanted at quite a young age, and by the way, usually by your parents. The job of the parent is to give the child healthy messages to be saying. In fact, the child's voice in their head really comes from the parents mostly, and teachers and friends. But the parent's major job, we should give a whole parenting class, the number one job of the parent is to make sure that child is saying positive, healthy things to themselves. That's the voice you want to create in your head. If, God forbid, your parents didn't do that to you, for you, then you have to learn to work with that voice. So you have your nature and your nurture and stuff that happened to you. 20 years old, you're 60 years old, and that's become your attitude to life. So at that point, you could just say, well, this is just my attitude. It's not my fault. I was born with it. You could say that, and I couldn't argue with you. But the secret here is that you can take responsibility to develop a positive attitude. You could either say, well, I was abused and this happened to me and you don't understand me and it's not fair, and if you went, you could say that and you're right. I'm sorry that happened to you. Or you could take responsibility and say, you know what? I'm going to work on developing a positive attitude, because your attitude to life is something that you can change. You're not a victim to your nature. You're not a victim to your nurture. You're not a victim to these things. By the way, you are a victim. I'm not saying it's your fault. You're a victim, but you don't have to play the victim. You don't have to be disempowered. You can say, I am. And by the way, lots of the greatest people I know are the people who overcame their nature, who overcame their nurture. They overcame. And I have friends that say to me, well, my father was abusive and horrible, but despite that, in fact, one of them says, because of that, he's become the best father. Because I'm not going to be a victim to those things. In the Torah, by the way, everything it says in the Torah, history, historical fact, that happened. The Jews were in Egypt, and we left Egypt, and the sea split. I believe that happened. But everything's got a deeper spiritual and psychological message. So what is Egypt? Egypt is slavery. It's slavery. And the word for Egypt in Hebrew is Mitzrayim, which comes from the word mitzah, which means limitations and boundaries, which is your pain, is your ego, is your stuff that you've got. It also is related to the word tsar, which is suffering. Your suffering is coming from these mental boundaries that have been created, not your fault, by the way. There's external forces, there's Pharaoh and the Egyptians, and terrible things happen. So even once we left Egypt, what happened when we left Egypt? They've chased us, they've followed us. Often when you leave an abusive situation, you're still in it, you're bringing it with you. So what happened? What does the Torah say? That they got real freedom? The sea split. And what's that really teaching us? It's teaching us that if you really want to be free of your nature and your nurture and your stuff, you have to change your nature. The sea turned from water into dry land, and that's how they became free. We have to learn to start working on ourselves and change our nature and overcome the difficulties we had in our life and deal with the pain and turn the pain into purpose.